my questions are really around the targets. I may be wrong, but I had a sense from the comments that living standards, really that monetary policy by targeting inflation is not really addressing living standard concerns that are affected by employment. But from a broader perspective of what influences living standards, so the broader frameworks which are being proposed by the OECD and actually Treasury, its own living standards framework, is much broader than that, and it takes into consideration uncertainty, sustainability and so on. So I would suggest that a policy that does lead to low inflation is, by doing so, contributing to living standards because it's helping reduce uncertainty. And one only has to think about the experiences of the Weimar Republic, for instance, what high inflation can lead to. So there's a time frame dimension, but there's an uncertainty dimension there. So I think there is some merit in having low inflation rates. Secondly, there are risks around uncertainty about your targets, and the principles of the time inconsistency of optimal plans very much influence the design, the current design of monetary policy. So I'm interested to know why you think those principles no longer apply, or why you think the way the design now is a challenge to the time and consistency of optimal plans, and it is better to put a greater emphasis on real variables rather than inflation in the design of the targets agreement. And I think Michael didn't allude to this, but that was where his challenge was around the targets as well. So why do you think that's no longer appropriate?
So Bob, to go back to the beginning, inflation targeting is still appropriate. And I've made absolutely clear that we don't propose to alter the band that is the PTO. That would be wrong, and I made the point about the most vulnerable in our community being the most affected by high inflation. So there is no alteration to that at all. What we are saying is that we want monetary policy to play the maximum part it can play in the achievement of those overall goals that you mentioned. The reason for not, and it's interesting to hear Bob and Michael's comment, it was interesting to hear Bob and Michael allude to the 1950 statement. One of the criticisms that I encountered as we were developing this was only putting in the act objectives that are concrete and limiting those. And I can imagine the questions I would have got today had I put in the objectives, things like the overall well-being of New Zealanders, how that would be defined. I think it is important that that work continues, and that's one of the reasons why having the Treasury people act the decision making, not voting in them, is to make sure that the work doesn't go wrong. Others have done a terrific job of developing the living standards framework. That's my job as Finance Minister to push that along. The bank's role is to use the monetary policy instruments it has. So I don't, the premise of your question I don't actually accept. We are continuing to take.
One of the recent influences on both employment levels and relative unemployment and prices of housing is immigration policy. And it seems hardly credible that the central bank should, as part of its mandate, have to deal with something which is influenced by such a variable. I mean, there will come a time when we have outflows of people rather than inflows, or a much lesser inflow. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, and again, I hope I made clear. I'm not suggesting the Reserve Bank or monetary policy in general has the sole or even in some cases the greater ability to manage these issues. What we're saying is we want it to be part of the mandate. And currently, when the bank reports to us, one of the favourite conversations at the Finance and Expenditure Committee is around immigration and the comments that the bank makes about how that will influence it. This is about monetary policy playing its part, no greater, no less than it can do. But I think my view is having it in the objectives of the bank, and wording is something we will discuss as we go on. But having the objectives of the bank acknowledge that that is an important factor doesn't mean they're in control of that factor, it means they have a role to play in helping establish it.
Yes. Thank you very much, Grant, for a great presentation. Without greater precision on the full employment goal, how would you measure the Reserve Bank's contribution to meeting it? And how would you also avoid the charge of merely window dressing?
In terms of, I mean, obviously we looked at the international experience in this regard. Clearly, I'm not proposing to have a specific rate because in part, full employment will differ depending on different conditions in the economic cycle at different times. I'm really wary of negotiating the PTA on the floor of this room, but you know, the comments being made earlier around what is the definition of the NAIRU, and that would probably be a starting point, therefore a starting point for measuring success or failure. It also is around it's why the importance of the two proposals together. The transparency will allow us, by the publication of minutes and so on, will allow us to understand the way in which the bank has actually taken into account their actions and the impact of their actions on employment rates. But as I said, given the variability of what full employment actually is, and I would say the US language is maximising employment. Full employment is a policy of the Labour Party, that's why I put it into this speech. But given those variabilities, attaching a specific percentage is not our